The rain had been falling steadily since before sunrise, light but persistent, like the kind that doesn't pound the ground, just soaks everything without pause. It wasn't the kind of rain you notice at first, but the kind that creeps into your clothes, down your neck, and into your bones. Over the quiet little town of Willilt, the sky was a dull, lifeless gray, soft steel stretching from one horizon to the other without a break. The streets reflected the color of the sky, glossy from the drizzle, shining like polished stone. The gutters gurgled softly, carrying leaves and cigarette butts through shallow streams. People hurried by, umbrellas raised like shields, coats pulled tight to their necks, feet slapping wet pavement. No one looked around. Their eyes stayed down, or locked onto their phones, fingers swiping as they walked. The world moved fast even in the rain, faster still when discomfort pressed in from above. They all just wanted to get where they were going, and nothing, not the weather, not each other, was worth stopping for. At the edge of 53rd and Maple, a place where the sidewalk had started to crack from years of wear, there was something lying against an old brick wall. Or maybe it was someone. It was hard to tell at first, half hidden in the shadow of a rusted-out drain pipe. But it was a dog, an old German shepherd, thin as bone, fur thick with mud and matted in places like it hadn't been brushed in months. Its body curled slightly, one paw awkwardly stretched out, badly swollen and resting at an unnatural angle, its ribs pressed clearly beneath the skin, each breath pushing them out like little hills and valleys. The fur around its eyes was gray, not just from age, but from weariness. The dog's eyelids drooped, half closed, clouded with pain and distance. It didn't bark, didn't whimper. It didn't even lift its head when people passed by just inches away. It only breathed, slow, shallow, and with effort, as if each inhale was a decision and each exhale a surrender. A woman in a business suit noticed it just long enough to tug her daughter closer. "Don't touch it," she said sharply, her voice low but urgent. "It's sick." A man passed moments later and muttered under his breath about the city needing to clean up its streets. He didn't slow his pace. No one did. Then came a group of teenagers, loud and careless, their sneakers squeaking on the wet ground. One of them spotted the dog and snorted. "Yo, look at this thing," he said, pulling out his phone to take a picture. "Bet it's been dead here for a week." He laughed like it was funny. Another kid reached out with a stick, nudging the animal's side. The shepherd didn't growl or twitch, just flicked one ear lazily, the way you do when you're too tired to react but still alive enough to notice. To the world passing by, it was nothing. Just another stray, too dirty to care about, too broken to fix. And then from the opposite side of the street came a boy. He was small, maybe 7, with a head of tangled brown hair and jeans torn at the knee. No shoes on his feet, no jacket, despite the chill. A battered backpack hung from one shoulder, sagging with weight. His name was Liam. He didn't speak, didn't ask questions. He just stopped and stared at the dog. There was no fear in his eyes, no disgust, no confusion. He didn't look away, didn't turn to find an adult. He simply watched. And then, slowly, something changed. The old shepherd blinked, just once. But it was enough. Liam moved forward one small step at a time, careful like he was approaching something sacred. He walked like the pavement beneath him mattered, like the raindrops had softened it into something holy. The world around him kept moving, cars rushing by, horns honking, people still shouting into phones. But Liam didn't seem to hear any of it. His whole focus had narrowed to this one place, this one moment. He reached the edge of the sidewalk and, without a sound, lowered himself to the ground beside the dog. His legs folded beneath him, the wet concrete soaking through his jeans, but he didn't flinch. His hands rested on his lap, fingers curled slightly, unsure of their purpose. His eyes didn't leave the shepherd's face, and the dog, tired, broken and forgotten, shifted only slightly. Not away, not in defense, but enough to show it had noticed him. Liam stayed still. The wind picked up, pushing the rain in sideways sheets. Someone across the street slipped and cursed. A delivery driver yelled something from his van. But Liam didn't blink. He sat beside the dog as if they had always been there together. The shepherd's eyes, pale and storm-colored, held something just behind the pain. Not fear, not confusion. Something older, something deeper. A tired kind of knowing. Liam saw it. He felt it. Because he knew what it meant to be tired in a way no one else understood. He hadn't spoken much in the months since his father died. Words had become strangers to him. Too heavy to carry, too sharp to let out. People said kids grieve differently, that they bounce back. But Liam hadn't bounced. He had folded into himself instead, quiet and invisible. And maybe that's why he saw the dog at all. Because when you know what it feels like to be unseen, you see others better too. The shepherd looked at him again, slower this time. Its chest rose, trembled, and fell. Its body said it had given up, but its eyes, they hadn't. Not yet. There was still something left, a question, a plea, a memory. Liam tightened his backpack strap, holding it to his chest like a shield. Maybe it was for comfort. Maybe it was just habit. His face stayed calm, his breathing steady. But deep inside, something was stirring. Not fear, not pity, recognition. The rain was heavier now, more constant. It fell like threads of silver between the buildings, soaking the boy's hair, painting streaks down his cheeks. He didn't wipe them away. He didn't shiver. He didn't speak. The boy and the dog stayed like that, side by side in the rain, Liam's hand hovering gently in the air, the shepherd's eyes half closed beneath the weight of exhaustion. Nothing dramatic, no sudden movement, just quiet. And that quiet began to ripple outward. The teenagers who had mocked the dog earlier lowered their phones. A woman with her groceries stopped, shifting the bags nervously in her arms, but she didn't leave. Even the delivery driver leaned against his van, watching in silence. For reasons none of them could explain, nobody wanted to interrupt. Liam reached into his pocket and pulled out what little he had left from lunch. A crumpled half sandwich, mostly bread, flattened by books and time. He broke off a small piece and placed it carefully on the ground between them. He didn't push it closer. He didn't coax. He simply offered. For a long moment, the shepherd didn't move. His cloudy eyes blinked once, then again. Slowly, with a trembling breath, he stretched his nose forward, sniffed, and finally took the crust into his mouth. He chewed weakly, but never broke eye contact with the boy. And Liam, soaked to the bone, just sat there, watching, waiting, holding space. The man at the back of the small crowd whispered almost to himself, "That boy is doing what we've all forgotten how to do." No one laughed anymore. No one hurried away. The only sound was the steady rain and the quiet miracle of trust beginning to grow between a broken child and a forgotten dog. Through the thin curtain of rain, a figure hurried down the sidewalk. Mara's scrubs were damp, her hair clinging to her face, her shoes splashing through puddles. She had come straight from the clinic, panic tightening her chest when she realized her son wasn't home. And now there he was, not in danger, not crying, just sitting on the wet pavement, hand outstretched toward a battered German shepherd, as if the two of them had always belonged to each other. "Liam!" Her voice cracked, sharp at first, born from fear. She took a step forward, but then stopped. The boy didn't turn. He didn't flinch. Mara froze. Something in the scene before her held her in place. The dog's tired body draped beneath a child's too small hoodie. the quiet dignity of her son, the hush that had settled over the crowd. Her lips parted, but no words came. She pressed a trembling hand against her mouth. Liam finally looked at her. His small face was pale, his hair plastered to his forehead, but his eyes were steady. "Don't worry, Mom. He's not mean. He's just lonely," Liam whispered. She didn't. She understood without needing it explained. That something bigger was happening here. So she stayed where she was, silent in the rain, and watched her son remind the world how to care. From the edge of the crowd, a woman in a navy jacket stepped forward. The sleeves were damp, the logo of a paw stitched near her shoulder. Hearies were soft but steady, the kind that had seen suffering before and refused to look away. She crouched down, careful not to come too close, her palms open in the air. Her voice was quiet, almost a whisper against the rain. "Hi there," she said, not to Liam but to the dog. "It's okay. I won't hurt you." The shepherd lifted his head slightly, suspicious, but didn't growl. His gaze flicked from her to the boy beside him as if asking permission. Liam looked at her then, cautious, protective. The woman met his eyes. "My name's Lillian," she said gently. "I work at the rescue center. We can help him. Medicine, food, a warm place to rest." She paused, her words careful. "But only if you're willing to let us." Liam glanced at his mother, then back at the dog, his small shoulders trembling from the cold. He nodded once with the seriousness of someone far older than 7. "Only if he won't be alone again," he said quietly. Lillian's throat tightened, but she smiled. "He won't. Not ever again. I promise." The shepherd let out a long breath as though he'd understood. Lillian studied the boy for a long moment. The way Liam's small hand hovered protectively above the shepherd. The way his thin shoulders stiffened at the thought of losing him. It was clear this child would not let the dog go, not without breaking something inside himself. So she made a choice. "We can arrange something," she said softly. Her voice was calm but deliberate, meant more for the boy than for the crowd. "At the shelter, we call it foster care. It means he can stay with you, Liam, just until he's strong again. You don't have to let him face another night alone." Liam's head snapped up. For a second, the rain caught in his lashes, but his eyes shone with something more than water. Hope. He turned to his mother, silent but pleading. Mara's heart ached at the sight. This wasn't a tantrum or Akildish whim. This was her son standing in the rain, asking to protect something weaker than himself. She drew in a shaky breath, then nodded. It was the first time she had ever allowed her 7-year-old to lead her into something larger than both of them. The decision was made insolence. Lillian rose slowly, signaling for the small rescue van that had been parked just down the block. A man stepped out with a blanket, approaching cautiously. The crowd parted to let them through. No one mocked anymore. No one hurried away. The German shepherd tried to push himself upright, but stumbled, his swollen paw giving way beneath him. Liam instantly pressed his hand against the dog's side, steadying him. "It's okay, Shadow," he whispered, though the name had only just formed in his mind. "We'll go together." The blanket was wrapped around the dog's thin body, and with gentle hands, Lillian and the driver lifted him into the van. He didn't resist. He only kept his cloudy eyes fixed on Liam, as though afraid the boy might disappear if he blinked. Liam climbed in beside him, water dripping from his hair onto the dog's fur. He laid a hand across the shepherd's back, the way one might anchor a kite against the wind. Shadow's breathing steadied a fragile rhythm beneath the boy's palm. Mia followed quietly, sliding into the front seat. She twisted the rear view mirror so she could see them both. Her soaked, trembling son and the battered animal curled beneath his touch. Something inside her softened, loosening a grief she hadn't realized she'd been carrying. The drive was short, though it felt like forever. By the time they reached home, night had wrapped the town in silence. The air smelled of wet earth and wood smoke from chimneys. Inside their small apartment, Mara laid an old quilt in the corner. Liam guided Shadow onto it, then curled beside him without hesitation. The dog let out a long sigh, lowered his head, and closed his eyes. "You're safe now," Liam murmured. Shadow shifted, closer, pressing his nose against the boy's arm, and in that quiet corner, under the hum of the radiator and the drip of rain outside, two broken hearts began to rest. Morning came gently with sunlight filtering through thin curtains and the smell of tea brewing in the kitchen. Shadow lay curled on the quilt in the corner, his breathing deep and even for once at peace. Liam was already awake, sitting cross-legged. Beside him, whispering a soft good morning as the shepherd thumped his tail against the floor. In the days that followed, their small apartment seemed to change. It wasn't louder exactly, but lighter. Liam spoke more. Sometimes he even hummed while washing Shadow's bowl or while folding the blanket in the corner. Mara noticed it most one evening when she leaned against the doorway, listening to Herson's quiet singing. It was the first time she'd heard his voice carry a tune since his father had passed, and Shadow changed, too. He ate slowly, carefully, as if testing whether the food would vanish. But each day his steps grew steadier, his eyes brighter. He followed Liam, everywhere, never letting the boy drift far from sight. At night, when Liam shifted in his sleep, the dog would nudge closer as though to keep him safe from dreams. Mara watched all of this with a heart both heavy and light. Heavy because she realized how much her son had been carrying in silence. Light because she finally saw him healing. Not through her words, not through time alone, but through the bond he had chosen with this broken creature. One afternoon, while Liam was bent over a drawing at the table and Shadow dozed at his feet, Mara reached a quiet decision. She crouched beside the dog, her hand brushing gently through his rough fur. "Your family now," she whispered. "We'll make it official." Shadow lifted his head, pressing it into her palm. Across the room, Liam's eyes brightened, a smile spreading slowly across his face. And in that stillness, a voice rose inside her, steady and undeniable. A 7-year-old boy had just reminded the world what it means to